Nebraska, one of just two states that doesn't have a winner-take-all system for electoral votes. Nebraska has one electoral vote that typically goes Democratic. Republicans want to change that, meaning all of the state's electoral votes would go to Trump. And that then creates this possible scenario of a 269-269 tie. So the election would be thrown to the House, likely giving Trump the victory. How much is this a real concern for Democrats? Are people talking about this?
Let's be real. Donald Trump knows he's going to lose the election, so he's going to try to steal it.
There is this kind of ground game that's going on behind the scenes in the Republican Party, which is trying to scheme out ways to potentially rig to win this election. And that's going to completely thwart the voice of the people if Kamala Harris wins the popular vote and then doesn't win the Electoral College. We've seen this play out before, and I really do think it sets up a pretty scary scenario that this is something that Republicans are considering.
Now, thankfully, this plan to turn Nebraska into a winner-take-all state isn't going to happen. A key Republican came out against it, which is, I guess, a miracle that you found one Republican in the Midwest who has some sense of reason, but let's not give them too much credit for clearing a bar that was on the floor.
So this will likely have to wait till after the election, and we can debate about it in the future legislature. And Senator McDonald, he represents his district, and he campaigned on it, and so I understand where he's coming from. I just want you to know, from our vantage point, standing where I sit, I wish every state did what we did. If every state did what we did, and went by district, it would be a much more democratic process.
But it goes beyond this plan in Nebraska. What he's trying to do is set up conditions, and not just in Nebraska, but across the country, that's going to make it incredibly easy for Trump and his allies to claim the election was rigged, or that there was some sort of injustice, that something was tainted. But if he wins, and if he does win outright, you won't hear any of this. In the run-up to it, and especially if he loses, that's all you're going to hear. So let's go through a couple of these different scenarios. Let's go through some of the ways that they're planning for this, and ultimately what it means. Nebraska and Maine do split electoral votes. It's been this way for Nebraska since 1992. So they give some delegates to the popular vote winner and some to who won each congressional district. And look, if they do want to change their system, it's perfectly reasonable for them to have that debate. If you want to switch to a winner-take-all, by all means. But why it was being proposed now, just weeks before the election, raises serious flags. They're doing it because the race could be tight, and in doing so, if they were to switch, thankfully they aren't, but if they were, that increases the likelihood of a 269 to 269 tie between Harris and Trump. And this is based on recent polling. In that situation, that presents a huge window for Trump and his allies to repeat the same playbook from 2020, cast doubt on the legitimacy of the election. And where does that vote go? It goes to Congress. More specifically, it goes to the House of Representatives, where right now, Republicans have the majority, a slim majority, but a majority nonetheless. So by making this switch, it's a way for MAGA Republicans in Congress to determine the outcome of the election, not the voters. And for a party that is so beholden to power, that is so corrupt, and as we've seen in the aftermath of January 6th and their justifications for it, completely willing to put party before country, they will surely elect Donald Trump president, not you, the voters.
Veteran Democratic elections lawyer Mark Elias writes, quote, "It is worse this election than previous ones because this year the GOP is far more organized. They might have tried to subvert the results in a handful of places in 2020 and 2022, but this year they will try to subvert them all." Setting the stage now for what is to come in November.
And of course, this is not the only thing that they're doing. The lesson MAGA Republicans learned after 2020 was that it can't just be piecemeal. It can't be in just a few states, and it certainly can't just be one riot at the Capitol. Going into this cycle, they have a plan, a robust one, and they have been working on this for years. They are thinking through every possible avenue to steal the election.
Rachel, if you think of it this way, January 6th was the culmination of a certification dispute, which, as you point out, began, among other places, in Michigan at the county level. And when Republicans couldn't achieve what they wanted to at the county level, they went to the state level. When they couldn't achieve that, they launched a fake elector scheme, which was just another way of undermining accurate certification of elections. When they couldn't do that, they launched launched a series of frivolous lawsuits. And finally, they attempted to block what on January 6th? The certification of the election. So this has been on their radar screen for some time, and it would be on their radar screen for sure in 2024.
And it goes beyond just legal challenges. They're also working with the fake elector scheme again. There are people who were affiliated with that plan in 2020 who are back as electors in 2024. They're going to try to steal this election again. You have to pay attention because they know Trump will not win the popular vote. It's just not going to happen. So they have to try it through the courts and through fake electors. It's purely transparent what they're trying to do. They're trying to subvert democracy, they're trying to cheat the system, and they are trying to hold on to power by any means necessary, even if that means completely dismantling our system. They don't care at all whatsoever. And it really is a dark irony for the party that pretends to care about freedom and liberty, for them to burn this whole thing down in some blind loyalty to Donald Trump.